Alright, here we go. Welcome back, people. Once again, welcome back. How have you been? So, on Sunday, we covered the third row of the collection, right? Volume number 3, the FPS genre and the Arena FPS subgenre. Okay, how have you been? So I hope you had a great Monday. Now it's Tuesday, and we are ready to continue with the Ultimate Collection Tour, the integral history of PC game genres. Before we begin, as we always do, as you know, I fixed this, so we'll deliver the thanks messages to the new subscriber. As you can see, thanks Sergio Daniel Migoni, I think it's that one. Yeah. Thanks from the bottom of my heart for subscribing to the YouTube channel. You are subscriber number 23. So thanks from the bottom of my heart for caring about my niche showcases and analysis. So from here, we salute you from Twitch. So you enjoy this fresh bod over at YouTube. So thanks from the bottom of my heart to you as well. Last time we read all of the Twitch and YouTube subscriptions, so now that I've fixed the alerts, I can do that, and I will highlight any public subscriptions like this every time someone subscribes to the YouTube channel. Of course, you are all always welcome. Any subscriber of the YouTube channel, you're all always welcome to join us here live, so we can chat together and have a blast analyzing games together right here. So yeah, if you want to join us over here at Twitch, you are always welcome. Know that you are always welcome. But if not, enjoy this fresh bod from here. Alright. What do we have for today? Ladies and gentlemen? What do we have for today? For today, we have the fourth row. We are covering the integral history of PC game genres right here. Remember that this is my custom collection. I left the details. I always leave the details in a pinned YouTube comment over at YouTube. So there you have all of the details of my collection, but just so you know, all of the games that you see here a lot of them are modded, and 99% of them run at modern resolutions and frame rates, and there are a lot of crazy reverse engineered versions, for example the MMORPGs, the MOBAs, and for example the arena shooters that we covered on Sunday. It's a pretty crazy collection that has a lot of unique features that you won't find anywhere else. Right, so today there's something, because here's the thing. It's the fourth row, and my camera will obstruct the view. So this happened to me last year, so now I have this. Perfect. So I calculated that it's more or less up until Gears of War and Uncharted 4, up until Gears of War 5 and Uncharted 4 here. But when we reach those, we'll go back to the usual camera. And afterwards, I think this is the only time that I'll need to do this. I'll need to change the camera like this, so you can see the artwork and my custom HD icons of the PC games, because as you know, I do all of these custom HD icons for the games, because normally, I don't know why, PC releases have pretty ugly icons. They are most of the time pixelated and they don't look good. So here, as you can see, it's 100% customized. So I added custom artworks and covers for all of the icons. So yeah, it looks okay, right? Yeah, it looks okay. You can see it. Once we reach Uncharted 4, we'll go back to the usual camera because I will no longer be obstructing. Alright, alright. With all of that said, once again, thanks Sergio Daniel Miglioni from the bottom of my heart. Thanks to all of the previous subscribers and followers of the Twitch channel and the subscribers of the YouTube channel. You always encourage me to continue showcasing all of these forgotten gems that have been sadly forgotten in a lot of cases. One last thing before we begin, something related to the previous volume of this collection. On Sunday, I remember I mentioned that I was working on applying a non-VR mod, a non-virtual reality mod of Half-Life Alyx that I couldn't showcase because I was still working on it. Well, here you have it. So I will highlight it right now at the beginning of this stream. Then we'll begin with the third-person shooter row. This one is a pretty special version of Half-Life Alyx. As you know, this is an exclusive virtual reality game. As you know, I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion or not, to be honest, nowadays, because I think that VR games are simply not convenient. I think virtual reality hasn't been able to adapt to how fast-paced some of the gaming genres are. So basically, I don't believe in virtual reality, at least for now. It's still in its infancy. It's still way too early to tell if it will actually be a game changer for the gaming industry. So the PC community developed a mod, which I applied. I was working on applying the previous week. So yesterday I finished the modding process, and this is a completely modded version of Half-Life Alyx that is completely playable without a VR headset. I think I'll eventually showcase it because it's a godsend for a lot of PC players who, like me, are simply not interested in virtual reality games, that think that it's clumsy and that it's not convenient. So this is a completely modded version. I've already tested it. It's 100% playable without a VR headset. You just apply the mod. It's extremely easy. I just had to execute a file, and it was everything automatic. It's not even a manual modding process like we are usually used to. Alright, so that one that we couldn't cover on Sunday, I just covered it here. It has pretty nice graphics for a VR game. They should have made this. They should have made a classic non-VR version of that natively. In fact, I read a lot of comments over at Metacritic and Steam asking for a non-VR version of Half-Life Alyx. And well, for those of you who are looking for this a specific way of playing it, a much more traditional way, know that there is a modded version of Half-Life Alyx that you can play without any VR headset. Alright, just like I mentioned that there are reverse engineered MOBAs, just like I covered reverse engineered MMORPGs and the reverse engineered arena shooters. For example, on Sunday we covered Star Wars Battlefront 2, and with a mod you can play it completely offline against bots, increasing the amount of AI controlled opponents and the rest of them. If you're interested in offline FPS arena shooters, also with Horde mode, we covered all of that on Sunday. For today, what do we have for today, ladies and gentlemen? For today we have the third-person shooter genre. It will also encompass a pretty unknown genre, which is the space simulation genre, because at the end of the day, it's also a shooting genre, which isn't FPS. We also have Twinstick Shooters, and we will also cover some specific isometric action RPGs that also have twin stick shooter mechanics. Pretty weird cases, that for the end. So we'll basically cover those 4 genres today. We begin. Grand Theft Auto 3, the definitive edition. Contrary to popular belief, all of these were recently released. Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas. These 3 have been recently re-released in their definitive versions. Which are basically remastered versions. And contrary to popular belief, while yes, there's a positive aspect to these remasters and a negative aspect. Positive aspect, they do look better than the originals. Anyone who denies that, I'm sorry, but it's lying. There's no other way to say it. It's lying, speaking bluntly. Bluntly speaking. They look much better than the originals. They play much better than the originals because of the crosshair. I disagree on the fact that these are terrible versions. The problem is, and the reason why I think they could have been much better, is that there's some censorship. For example, I remember, I think they censored some Confederate American flags, for example, on the T-shirt of some of the characters, for example in Vice City, and I don't know what else they might have touched there, so I definitely don't like it. They've applied censorship to these 3, but at the end of the day, these are pretty much the definitive versions of experiencing these 3 masterpieces. And pretty much I have a Grand Theft Auto here because it's basically the one game responsible, the one franchise responsible for popularizing the third-person shooter genre. It didn't create it, but it definitely popularized it. It's definitely the most popular and prominent example of this genre. Besides, they are open world. You can do other activities, as you know. What could I tell you about Grand Theft Auto? It's such a popular game that there's no point in explaining what's it about. So yes, these are the definitive versions. Why do I say that these are better than the original versions? Well, because they've upgraded the graphics, and after a lot of patches, they are much more playable. It's true that at the beginning, if you just download version 1.00, if you tried to play it back in the day, it was unplayable. But now it has been fixed. It shouldn't happen. It definitely shouldn't happen. But the most objective viewpoint is that once they patched everything, the 3 games are playable. I played the original Vice City. I played the original Grand Theft Auto 3. I still need to play San Andreas. Yes, it's one of the few games that I should have played back when I was a teenager, and I didn't play it. I simply had other games to play. Grand Theft Auto 4, I did play it. I completed it with every single side quest. The same goes for side quests. Well, all of the quests that the game had, pretty much. I need to finish the expansions. It has 2 expansions that I couldn't play it. I think the first time I played this one was on the PS3, but I didn't do the secondary quests, and then I played it here. And of course, I finished Grand Theft Auto 4 recently, 1-2 years ago, several years after it released. It wasn't my top priority. Great games. These games, just for anyone who's wondering and haven't played them, these games don't have any censorship. They are extremely explicit in terms of dialogues and everything. I think they're pretty pretty honest with themselves. That's something that I admire out of all of the Grand Theft Auto franchise. How it perfectly recreates society without any kind of problem on their side. I mean, they are honest. They are brutally honest, especially Grand Theft Auto 5. Especially Grand Theft Auto 5 is a brutally honest game, but the others too as well. So yes, pretty much the three remastered trilogy. I know that nowadays this trilogy is hated by a lot of people. This remastered trilogy, but after the patching process, I honestly have no complaints. I could play them perfectly fine. I'm sorry, they fixed it. So yeah, they've updated everything and it's playable. There are no game-breaking bugs. I didn't encounter any graphical issues, honestly. So yeah, you'll see that this remastered trilogy is hated but it's playable from beginning to end without any major graphical glitches. At least I played the updated versions and they all play perfectly. Then these ones are the classic versions, pretty much. Probably Grand Theft Auto 6 will be heavily censored, so yeah, just don't expect a Grand Theft Auto 6 properly done anytime soon. No, no, no. It will be heavily censored. Trust me, it's something that is bound to happen. It's bound to happen because Grand Theft Auto 5 is a politically incorrect game, and nowadays that's simply not it isn't tolerated. Sadly, censorship has destroyed a lot of gaming franchises, and I think Grand Theft Auto 6, which is under development, I think it will suffer the same fate. Max Payne. This is a pretty interesting version because I think Rockstar is also working on a remastered version of this. It's a case similar to The Witcher 1 that I mentioned in the first volume, the RPG volume of the collection. This is the original version, playable at modern frame rates and resolutions. I've already tested it. It works smoothly and it's amazing. I love the aesthetics of the sixth generation of gaming consoles, the Xbox and the PlayStation, because there was no ambient occlusion yet applied to games, and it gave them a distinctive and unique art style that you won't find anywhere else, and I think it's highly underappreciated. For example, think about Max Payne, Max Payne 2, some of the games that I'm gonna mention use this art style, Knights of the Old Republic. They use this art style that has been sadly ignored. The reality of the situation is that this art style was simply considered as primitive 3D graphics, and it's not the case. It has its own charm. Think about Halo 2, and as I've said, Knights of the Old Republic, Advent Rising, that we are going to showcase in some moments. So yeah, in a couple of minutes. So Max Payne 2, these two versions are completely playable at unlocked frame rates and resolutions. So amazing games. Rockstar is supposedly working on remastered versions of them, but until those are released and I verify that they work properly and they have unlocked frame rates and that they don't have any stupid censorship, these are pretty much the definitive versions, modded to work in widescreen resolutions. Max Payne 3, this is a much more modern game. This is from the 7th generation, developed many years after Max Payne 2 and 1. So it's much more modern. It's totally different in that sense, but in terms of gameplay mechanics, it's exquisite. It's just like the first two. It's just that you'll feel that the engine is, since the engine is completely different, the graphical engine, you will feel a difference between the first two and the third one. It's much more modern, as I've said. The gameplay mechanics are extremely smooth in comparison to the other two, but thanks to the graphical mods, as I've said, they are also extremely playable. If you don't want to mess with mods or anything, if you want to be introduced to the franchise, well, I generally don't suggest this, but in this case, you can play Max Payne 3, and if you liked it, you can play Max Payne 1 and 2. This is a forgotten saga by Rockstar. It has that slow motion jump mechanic that is kind of like a movie, so if you like that, you'll feel right at home. Red Dead Redemption 2. Haven't played this one. I finished the first Red Dead Redemption. Another unpopular opinion of mine, just like I said yesterday on Sunday, that I think Halo 1 and Metroid Prime were better than Half-Life 2. Please try not to burn me. Try not to burn me at the stake. Please try not to publicly stone me. Or before you do it, please at least try to hear me, or at least hear what I said on Sunday. That yes, I think Halo 1 and Metroid Prime are much better and were developed before Half-Life 2, so pretty much. Just like that, I played Red Dead Redemption 1. I finished everything up until the very last ending, which fortunately, I don't know, it's a little bit happier than the traditional ending, let's say. I didn't like Red Dead Redemption 1. I mean, I didn't like it. It wasn't a bad game. I thought it was a game of 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. Uh, the ending is totally anticlimactic. I wouldn't have included it at all. No, definitely. So I think this will end up being the very same thing. It's not that I don't like them. I just think that that there's there's first of all, I don't like in general. I don't like games that don't have epic bosses. That's why I like Metroid Prime so much. Um, Secondly, I don't like the fact that mm, Rockstar games are pretty much tied to reality, to historical, not accuracy because they do crazy things anyways, but they cannot strain them a lot. So there's no science fiction in Rockstar games. That's the thing, and for me, because of my personal tastes, that's something that limits them a lot. Do I say that they are bad games? No, not at all. Not at all. Uh, Red Dead Redemption is a great franchise, and just the fact that I thought that the first one was 7 out of 10, the first Red Dead Redemption, that's why I like the zombie expansion. I would have awarded the 10 out of 10 to the zombie expansion of Red Dead Redemption. The first one. The first one is exclusive to the Xbox 360 and the PS3. I played it on the Xbox 360. Great game, but just for my personal taste, it's not what I need to award it 10. It's just that I have a tendency to like science fiction. I just don't like them when they are extremely realistic. So yeah, but those of you who like that, if you like a cowboy simulator, this one was made for you. Play the first Red Dead Redemption. Even I did it, and I didn't like it. Well, I liked it. I liked it up until the ending, and up until I realized that you were extremely limited. I haven't played this one, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It's a love-hate relationship that I have with this series. But yeah, I admit they are great games, and it's perfectly understandable anyone who awards them 10 out of 10. The open world, it's amazing, and I think it's the part of it that is really worth it. The open world. I enjoyed the open world of Red Dead Redemption 1 much more than the story or anything. So I am going to pretty much play it because of that. Anyways, as I've said, I like all Rockstar games, so pretty much. I like how the open worlds that they create. For me, that's the key point of their quality, without a doubt. The Punisher, a pretty forgotten game. This one uses the very same method, the very same modding method as Max Payne 1 and 2 here. It's the very same modding method, I remember. So it's playable at modern resolutions and frame rates. Widescreen, pretty amazing. It's a game from the from the original Xbox era. We are talking about the 6th generation of gaming consoles. Yeah, the original Xbox was home to a lot of third-person shooters, of early third-person shooters, before Gears of War was a thing. During the 7th generation with the Xbox 360, so here you'll see all of those examples. The Punisher is one of them. Great game that I love. This one is from 2004. Stabs the zombie in a Rebel Without Pulse, or in Rebel Without Pulse. I think it's a Rebel Without Pulse. No, Rebel Without a Pulse, something. This game was originally released for the for the original Xbox as well. You play as a zombie and you pretty much kill people. Yeah, you get to play as a zombie and you throw your organs to them. And well, it's a bit disgusting, I must admit it. The game is a bit disgusting, but nothing that you cannot endure if you are used to playing games. And it's pretty hilarious, so it's pretty good. It has a nice filter, like it's an old TV series, just like the original. So in this remaster, they more or less revived a great classic from the original Xbox. It was an exclusive, so pretty much this one revived as a modern PC game. Advent Rising. This one is also part of the legacy of the original Xbox. This one is on the original Xbox as well as on PC. I did a complete walkthrough of this game. This game is extremely special. This is the predecessor, the original predecessor, and one of the highlights of my collection. This is the original predecessor of Mass Effect. The original predecessor of Mass Effect is extremely similar to Mass Effect. The story in this game was written by Orson Scott Card, the author of Ender's Game, a pretty famous science fiction novel, which is my favorite science fiction novel of all time. That's why I know this. And yes, pretty much. Not only that, this game is also amazing in terms of gameplay mechanics. It's amazing in terms of story, of course, in world building, the classic graphics, as I've said, from the original Xbox period, which still didn't have ambient occlusion. This one is modded. It looks better than on the Xbox Series X because Microsoft recently released an Xbox Series X version. This is the community patch at ultra settings, and I can assure you it looks and plays amazing. As I've said, I did a full walkthrough of this game because of how amazing it is. I think this game was the first game I awarded it a 10 out of 10 on the channel, a perfect score, an S+. So you have to play this game. Everyone should play this game. It's one of the highlights. It's from 2005, I believe. And they had such confidence in this game that it was meant to be a trilogy. It was meant to be a trilogy, and they were so confident that people would buy it. That yeah, everything, the story, the settings, everything is prepared for a sequel and a third game. But that sadly never happened. Sadly, that never happened. It's one of the most unfair stories of the gaming industry. Advent Rising is pretty much one of the best third-person shooters ever created. Um, you have to play this game. Mandatory. It's mandatory to play this game. This game is amazing. The PC version, thanks to the community patch, works perfectly with unlocked resolutions and frame rates. So it's absolutely amazing. The dodging system is extremely hard on hard mode. It's a pretty brutal challenge. I have a bod which is the Seeker Temple Assault. The Seeker Temple Assault of this game, which is pretty much the most difficult level. It's a huge difficulty spike, and I have that 20-minute ball in which you can see how that you need to have incredible reflexes. There's also time manipulation mechanics, kind of like when you jump, just like with Max Payne. So it's pretty brutal. But not only that, some of the enemies can only be damaged while you stop time, while jumping, while attacking them from specific angles and everything. So yeah, yes, pretty much Advent Rising. Here you can see I applied this custom cover to it. It's a science fiction about aliens and everything, so I would highly recommend Advent Rising to pretty much anyone who liked Mass Effect, Gears of War, pretty much any third-person shooter, without a doubt. I would recommend it to anyone, it's one of the biggest tragedies. It's one of the biggest tragedies of the gaming industry. It's one of the biggest tragedies of the gaming industry. So yeah, pretty much you have to play Advent Rising. You have to play Advent Rising because it's one of the greatest tragedies of the gaming industry. This game deserves much more praise. So yeah, pretty much you need to play Advent Rising. As I've said, it's not only the predecessor of Mass Effect in terms of settings. It's a pure third-person shooter, just like Gears of War, but it also uses time manipulation mechanics like Max Payne. So an amazing game that you really need to play. Gears of War. What could I say about this? This is the PC version. It's pretty similar to the Xbox 360 version. I know there was a Ultimate version that Microsoft released, but it used Universal Windows platform, so its performance is not good. Any game released under Universal Windows platform back when Windows 10 was launched has been tainted by terrible performance and issues. There's one more third-person shooter that I should highlight, which is Phantom Dust, a pretty unique game that was exclusive to the original Xbox for a lot of years. Phantom Dust. There are many more, but I have them on the Xbox 360 because it has backwards compatibility with most of those games. There are a lot of exclusive third-person shooters on the original Xbox that never came to PC, but Phantom Dust does have a pretty rare Universal Windows platform version. That's why I don't have it here. I have it on the Xbox 360 because it is backwards compatible. But yeah, pretty much there's a Windows 10 version of Phantom Dust, just in case you're interested. But yeah, I would recommend the Xbox 360 version, which is backwards compatible. Pretty much. I mean, it's the original Xbox version that is compatible with the Xbox 360. But if not, know that there's a Windows 10 version of Phantom Dust. It's just that it can only be played with Universal Windows platform, and it gives you a lot of issues. Alright, Gears of War. The pretty same story. This one is the precursor, the original father of third-person FPS, of third-person shooter games. At least any modern example, the predecessor of this game is actually a shooter on the original Xbox called what was it called? Kill Switch. Kill Switch. But there are many more. Not only Kill Switch, Psyops, the Mindgate Conspiracy, uh, all of the ones that I mentioned, Advent Rising, The Punisher, Stubbs, the Zombie, um, Unreal Tournament, the Liandry Conflict, or something like that. There are many third-person shooters on the original Xbox that never came to PC. They are still all exclusives. So I use the Xbox 360 for that. Gears of War. This version of Gears of War is the Windows Vista version of Gears of War. Yes, I still have it. Pretty much it works perfectly. You need to, as I've said, I think someone asked me this when I played Universe at War over at YouTube, there's a period of time in which Windows Vista games were released on PC. It's the case of Halo 2. It's the case of Fable 3, for example, of the one that I showcased the other day, Shadowrun 2007. All of those were the idea of Microsoft's idea was to create the universal Windows platform even before that was a thing when they released it with Windows 10. They tried to implement it as far back as Windows Vista. So the first Gears of War, the original version, is that. So you need to configure games for Windows Live. And yeah, pretty much if you can do it, it's the only way to play Gears of War, the original, Shadowrun 2007, Fable 3 on PC nowadays. As you know, the servers are dead, so you pretty much have to create an offline account. And if you create an offline account, you will be able to play them without any kind of issues. Fortunately, mandatory internet connections weren't having a mandatory internet connection wasn't a thing back then, so fortunately we can play these games without any kind of issue just by creating an offline account. I have Gears of War 2, 3, and Judgment on the Xbox 360, also with the expansion of Gears of War 3, the Shadow of General Ram. If they ever, this one doesn't have Horde mode, but Gears of War 2, 3, and Judgment do have it. So yeah, I pretty much use the Xbox 360 to play Horde mode on those. But just so you know, if you manage to install games for Windows Live, which is pretty much the Windows Vista version, you can still play the original version of Gears of War here without any kind of issue. Just remember that since the servers are dead, you have to create an offline account. There's no other way to get this version. The frame rate here is locked at 62 FPS. I think it was an engine limitation from that time that modders could never change. So yeah, pretty much the original Gears of War does have a 62 FPS limitation. Then, as I've said, I have Gears of War 2, 3, and Judgment on the Xbox 360. And then we arrived here, Gears of War 5, pretty much the latest installment. Gears of War 4, you must be wondering why is it that I cannot have it? Well, it's because it uses the universal Windows platform, just like Phantom Dust. It truly ruined a lot of games, which made them incompatible with later Windows versions. It's an absolute disaster. Universal Windows platform ruined a lot. At least it ruined a lot of games, but at least out of the top of my head, it ruined Gears of War 4, Gears of War Ultimate Edition. It almost ruined some two Twinstick Shooters, which were spin-offs of the Halo franchise, which were Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike. I'm just using my memory. It also ruined Phantom Dust. That one was especially painful because it was an amazing original Xbox classic game, and now the Windows 10 version is completely broken. It also ruined Halo Wars 2, and well, also Crackdown 3. Contrary to popular belief, Crackdown 1 and Crackdown 2 were pretty good games, but then, of course, with Crackdown 3, if on top of terrible gameplay mechanics, we also add the fact that Universal Windows platform ruined its release, well, we get the perfect combination for a disaster. But well, Gears of War 5, pretty much this one, fortunately, they realized that Universal Windows platform was a mistake. They realized that games for Windows Live was a mistake, with the cases of Gears of War 1 there, of Fable 3 that we showcased in the first stream, and also there are other games, for example Shadowrun 2007 and some others that were sadly ruined. Their releases were ruined by games for Windows Live. So yeah, fortunately Gears of War 5 is free of all of those things. Alright, we still have some other games which are part of the legacy of third-person shooters of the 7th generation and the 6th generation. Particularly after covering Uncharted 4, we'll get to those released during the 7th generation. Just like you can see there, Alan Wake is a remastered version. Right. So since we've already reached that, I can change the. There we go. I can change the camera once again to our usual camera. Otherwise, as you can see, I was obstructing their view. And alright, Uncharted 4. I played Uncharted 1, 2, and 3 on the PS3. They are still exclusive to the PS3. Sony still hasn't released any modern remastered versions of Uncharted 1, 2, or 3. So pretty much this was a godsend, because those of us who played the original trilogy back in the day on the PS3, thanks to this recently released version, some months ago, it's pretty recent, that's why I've been unable to play it, we will be able to experience the ending of the Uncharted series, because as you can see, A Thief's End is the ending. For those of us who stopped buying consoles during the 8th generation because everything was being released on PC, this is a godsend. It's true that these versions that Sony releases usually have some performance issues initially, like most games pretty much nowadays, but then they fix them. That's a pretty positive thing, that they fix them. And this one is already fixed. As you can see, I apply a custom cover made by me, just like in the 90s. I love doing that, creating those HD icons for these games. So yeah, pretty much I restored the original cover in this case. I cannot say much because this one I haven't been able to play it. I played the original trilogy, so I still need to try this one. Alan Wake. Well, we continue with the legacy of the original Xbox, but in this case, the 7th generation, the Xbox 360. Remember what I said. Advent Rising, Stubbs the Zombie, The Punisher, the first two Max Payne games, they were all classic third-person shooters of the original Xbox. It's a genre that became popular with the original Xbox through its exclusive games. By a huge proportion of the exclusive original Xbox library is composed of those third-person shooters. There are even more that I don't have here because they haven't been released on PC. As I've said, the case of Phantom Dust, well, it had that tragic Universal Windows platform release. It's just like not releasing it. There's no difference. But there are other games. For example, I remember PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy, the ones that I've mentioned. I don't know. American McGree, a lot of original Xbox third-person shooters. Unreal Tournament, the Liandry Conflict, as I've said, a lot. Then if I ever get a capture card, I will do a cover of. I will cover the original Xbox games eventually. Alan Wake. This is the remastered version. This game was originally developed for the Xbox 360. It mixes third-person shooter mechanics with some slight survival horror elements. They are not survival because I remember that the ammo wasn't scarce on the Xbox 360, and this is pretty much the same version. What they didn't do, what they never remastered, it's the forgotten expansion of Alan Wake. This is a remastered version. This is the original Xbox 360 version of its expansion. It was a standalone expansion, the American Nightmare expansion. Pretty much, if you liked Alan Wake, even if this is the remastered version and this is the original version, it's highly recommended. Maybe it's not as action-oriented as the flagship of modern third-person shooters developed by Microsoft, which is Gears of War. This one was developed by Remedy, the same developers who worked on Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2 before Rockstar took ownership of the franchise with Max Payne 3. Remember that I mentioned some minutes ago that there was a huge gap of years between the release of Max Payne 2 and Max Payne 3. We are talking about this one is 2002, something like that, the beginning of the 6th generation of the original Xbox, and this is 2012, the ending of the 7th generation, so almost 2 generations. So well, this one was developed by Rockstar, these two by Remedy. Remedy is also responsible for Alan Wake and its expansion. I'm just using my memory. I think I'm not missing anything. I think it's correct. But yeah, pretty much, I am pretty sure that was the story. After this, they developed some other games that we're gonna cover soon enough. But first, before we get there, we have a pretty curious entry. I love this custom cover. You have no idea how many days it took me to create this custom cover of Sunset Overdrive. For those of you who don't know, Sunset Overdrive has a pretty interesting story. It was developed by Insomniac Games, which was a second-party company not owned by Sony, because second-party companies aren't owned by first parties, like Sony first parties, the developers of the consoles. But interestingly, up until this point, Insomniac Games had exclusively developed games for Sony, the Ratchet & Clank series, the famous Ratchet & Clank series, and there's one more, there's a forgotten game of the 7th generation that few people know, that it was also developed by Insomniac Games, not Sunset Overdrive, which is, I think the name was Fuse or something like that. It was a third-person shooter, precisely. It was released for the Xbox 360 and the PS3, for both of them. It wasn't exclusive to any platform, which was kind of like the sign that Insomniac Games had the intention of releasing games kind of like in a third-party way for everyone, on all of the platforms. And precisely after that game, after Fuse, I believe the name is Fuse, it was a pretty good game with pretty good graphics, pretty similar to Gears of War, on both the Xbox 360 and the PS3. After that, they developed Sunset Overdrive as a second party of Microsoft, right after being a second party of Sony. It's a pretty interesting story, because they went from one extreme to the other, and they developed this game. This game is pretty unique in the sense that it could remind you of Saints Row. It's pretty crazy, highly recommended. It was pretty much the best game released during the launch of the Xbox One, of the original Xbox One, back when they released that disaster with online-only capabilities back in 2014, a pretty dark period of time for the gaming industry. They developed Sunset Overdrive, open world, excellent third-person shooter mechanics. It was pretty much the best game of the best launch title of the Xbox One, and it's amazing. You have to try this game because it's unique. The PC version works at unlocked frame rates and resolution, so there's no excuse. The game is amazing, and I love that custom cover that I developed for it. Record, continuing with the legacy, in this case, we went from the 7th generation to the 8th generation, the Xbox One. As you can see, I grouped all of the Microsoft third-person shooters right after the Rockstar shooters, because they are also mixed with Remedy, so they were pretty much the same developers that simply worked for different studios. That's something pretty usual in the gaming industry, pretty common. Record. This one is different because this one could be classified as a bullet hell third-person shooter. Pretty interesting. This one has Japanese developers behind it, not only Western developers, which makes it different. Different in its philosophy, different in its gameplay mechanics, and as well different in overall the level design, especially because it could be a third-person bullet hell. Not that it's as difficult as we are usually used to the vertical bullet hell shooters in which you control your spaceship or your plane. It's not as difficult as those, but it is difficult in comparison to most third-person shooters. It has that Japanese bullet hell spirit to it, so also highly recommended. Continuing with the legacy of Remedy, we have yet another. This one wasn't a launch title of the Xbox One, but it was released shortly after, so pretty much there wasn't a huge gap of years as to consider that the development philosophy changed a lot. I think this one is from 2016, could it be, if my memory serves me right, and the Xbox One, the original model is from 2014. So Quantum Break was also developed by Remedy, so we continue with the legacy of Remedy. This one is pretty similar to the other game that you see right there, which is Control, recently released, also developed by Remedy, and these are pretty much the same. They are pretty much the same franchise, though they use different names. This one was based on a TV series of the same name, and pretty much if you liked Alan Wake and if you liked Max Payne, this is pretty much the natural evolution of classic Max Payne gameplay mechanics. Maybe not Max Payne 3, because remember, this one was developed under the ownership of Rockstar Games, but Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2. So pretty much these are the last two games in the long legacy of Remedy third-person shooters. Definitely a legendary developer that certainly helped the genre a lot, because they combined that time-stopping mechanic that is so unique, that makes the game look like a Hollywood movie for some moments, but in a good sense of the word. Like when you jump out of cover and you stop time and you can shoot enemies, it was something that contributed a lot to the popularity of the third-person shooter genre. So if you like that mechanic, you'll find it in all Remedy games. Quantum Break, Control the Ultimate Edition, they are all great examples if you like the signature, the essence, the inherent philosophy present in Remedy games. Mafia 1 Definitive Edition, Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, and Mafia 3, pretty much this trilogy. The first two games are pretty different to the third one. I highly recommend the first one and the second one. The third one, well, It was developed a lot of years later. See, it's a pretty similar case to the Max Payne franchise. It was developed several years later, and it's different to the original craftsmanship, to the original craftsmanship of Max Payne. It's pretty much the same story. So yeah, pretty much I would highly suggest you play the second one and the first one. They are excellent games. The third one, be careful with that one. Be careful with that one. It's definitely different. Well, a Japanese developer, Sega, Binary Domain, a forgotten game of the 7th generation. I played this one all the way to the end. There's one thing about this game. This game was developed in a period of time of the 7th generation after the release of Mass Effect that influenced a lot of games, this one included, which is the decision system. The decision system that you, in the sense that your decisions affect the course of the story. So, without doing spoilers, you can influence the outcome of this game completely, pretty much in a pretty similar way to Mass Effect. So, yes, if you like that, it's not an RPG game. It's a pure third-person shooter game. It's not like Mass Effect in that sense. If you're looking for the original predecessor of Mass Effect, as I've said, that is Advent Rising. There's no RPG, but it's like playing Mass Effect before Mass Effect was a thing. I did a 100% completion walkthrough of this game. It was the first game I ever reviewed with a perfect S+ qualification. It's an amazing game. I have especially the Secret Temple Assault level is one of the most difficult. That's why I recorded it separately. I think I have it among the Age of Empires 4 recordings or something like that. But yes, pretty much, this is the original predecessor of Mass Effect. However, Binary Domain is an extremely special case. Give me a second. There we go. It's an extremely special case. It's Japanese developed, as I've said, and that's why I have it here right next to Vanquish, because it was also developed by Sega. A lot of people know about Vanquish. It had a recent remaster on PC. I mean, recent to 2017 or something like that, just like alongside Bayonetta. Because this one was developed by Platinum Games, as well as Bayonetta. But a lot of people forget about Binary Domain. Binary Domain is slower than Vanquish. The comparison is absolutely needed because they were both published by Sega. They just had different developers. This one is from Platinum Games, and this one I don't remember. I think it was one of the internal studios of Sega, something like that. It was kind of like first party developed by Sega themselves. It's like Gears of War. It's like Gears of War with a bit of Mass Effect. More or less, that's the idea. It's pretty well executed. It's playable at modern resolutions and frame rates. And considering this isn't a remaster, that's a pretty important feat to have, because it's the original version and the game engine wasn't hard-coded at something like 30 FPS or those. This one isn't modded. I created this custom cover, as you can see. If you liked Gears of War and you want kind of like a Japanese version of Gears of War, this one was made for you. Now, if you want a unique, faster version of Gears of War, Japanese developed, Vanquish was made for you. Also, if you like Bayonetta, you will probably love Vanquish because they were both developed by Platinum Games. Vanquish is amazing. It's extremely short. This game is extremely short. Binary Domain is longer, and as a whole, it's a much more complete product in the sense that the story is complete. That you feel that the game pretty much completes a cycle. in terms of gameplay mechanics, story, and level design and everything. Contrary to Vanquish, which is abruptly interrupted. This is an extremely short game, amazing game, but short. I think it's the best example of a short game that is a perfect game. Vanquish. Vanquish, you have to play it. Out of these two, I played both. I like Vanquish more because of how fast-paced it is, and because of its unique combo system that you are awarded points according to which part of the body of the robots you shoot. And but binary domain shouldn't be underestimated. It's a total sleeper gem that a lot of people ignore, and that's a mistake. It's one of the sleeper games of the 7th generation, Binary Domain. If you like Gears of War, as I've said, this one is also against robots, just like Vanquish. So if you like Vanquish or Gears of War, you'll probably like Binary Domain. You also fight against huge enemies, just like in Vanquish. So if you like that, you have the perfect game in your hands. Warhammer 40k Space Marine. The sequel of this game has been fortunately announced after 10 years or so. This game is amazing. I completed it back in the day. I completed those last 3 games back in the day on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Warhammer 40k Space Marine is unique. And besides, this version is special because this version allows me to play the legendary Horde mode of Warhammer 40k Space Marine that was sadly disabled in the console versions of the game. Yes, this is a special version that I think is pretty difficult to find anymore because they shut down the servers. The game is you are no longer able to find this game. It's one of those preservation efforts that I've been mentioning, just like when I mentioned the preserved, reverse engineered arena shooters of Sunday, for example. I think we mentioned Call of Duty World War II, Black Ops 3, Advanced Warfare, and all of these pretty much, Shadowrun. Just like those, I preserved the Horde mode of Warhammer 40k Space Marine. That's the interesting part of it. Pretty much you'll love this game if you like the Warhammer universe, but if you liked Gears of War, this one was heavily influenced by it. Even the melee mechanics are influenced by Gears of War, so if you like Gears of War or the Warhammer universe, this one was made for you. Developed by THQ, if I'm not mistaken, the Swedish developer that I have praised so much. They have a lot of talent over at THQ. Nowadays it's THQ Nordic, but it has always been the same. This Swedish developer has a lot of talent. It's one of my favorites, alongside the French studio Focus Home Interactive. And it's sad that AA studios are disappearing nowadays because, as I've said, Focus Home Interactive, THQ, they were all amazing studios that certainly live in the shadows in a pretty unfair way, to be honest. The Bureau, XCOM Declassified. This one has nothing to do with the turn-based franchise. This is a spin-off, which is a third-person shooter spin-off with real-time third-person shooter mechanics. The Bureau XCOM Declassified is an extremely obscure release, just like Binary Domain of the 7th generation. Here you can see why the 7th generation it's so important to me, and I think people nowadays they don't appreciate it because it had a lot of sleeper games with a lot of quality. We are talking about AAA quality, and they were completely ignored. I know it happens with every generation of game consoles, but the case of the 7th generation is particularly painful because most of the forgotten productions were of AAA quality. And when I say AAA quality, trust me, I'm not exaggerating, because this game, believe it or not, this game used an advanced physics system. Now, what do I mean by this? Not only the fact that the physics of the objects in this game are unique, pretty advanced, it looks like a game developed during the 8th or during the 8th generation or even the 9th generation, the one that we are going through right now. Not only that, it uses an exclusive NVIDIA-based physics system that was way ahead of of its time. Consider that we are talking about the game released back in 2011, something like that. I don't remember correctly, but I think it was 2011, and the physics looked like a game developed in 2020. The smoke was also influenced by physics, the same system used in the PC version of the first Batman, of Batman Arkham Asylum. The same NVIDIA fog simulation, which is even better than modern fog simulation mechanics. So graphically, we're talking about an extremely advanced game in comparison to anything you may encounter uh, uh, in the 7th generation. Nowadays, yes, we have much more modern technology, but out of the 7th generation, the Bureau XCOM Declassified, its physics engine was out of this world. You can Google images of this, and you'll realize how amazing it is. In terms of gameplay mechanics, the game is also solid. It's based in the classic movies from the 60s, kind of like when the aliens were. It was thought that the aliens were about to invade with their giant flying saucers, with a pretty classic 60s aesthetic. This game. So yeah, expect men in mafia hats, just like in Mafia 1 and 2. Pretty similar aesthetic from the 60s. And the game is amazing. You control a squad. It has a squad-based mechanics as well, just like in Gears of War 1 with the artificial intelligence controlled allies. You fight against the aliens, just like in XCOM, but with a lot of charisma. I think this one has much more charisma than the turn-based strategy franchise, which is the main franchise of the XCOM series developed by 2K and Firaxis, and there are some other studios, but basically they are owned by 2K Games. Riders of the Broken Planet, this is a modern release. I haven't been able to explore it, so I cannot say a lot about it. But I remember watching images of this game, and it's amazing. If you like Destiny, Borderlands, you probably will like this one because it uses a squad-based looting system. I haven't explored it a lot, but pretty much I remember those things. That it was online only for a lot of time, but then they cut the internet connection, allowing me to preserve this version forever. Cannot speak a lot because I haven't played it. Destroy All Humans, the recent remaster of this legendary franchise of our favorite alien, Crypto. This one was heavily influenced by a cartoon, a pretty famous cartoon, at least here in the West, at least in North America and South America a bit as well, which is Invader Sim, pretty legendary cartoon, which isn't made for kids. Actually, it wasn't for kids, and back when we were kids, we watched Invader Sim. Apparently, it was not appropriate to do so, and yeah, pretty much if you liked Invader Sim as much as I do, because it's an amazing cartoon. Not for kids, but an amazing cartoon. You will pretty much love Destroy All Humans. It's like a living simulation of Invader Sim. Without the charisma of Sim, in this case we have crypto. Yes, just like the cryptocurrencies. The game was developed in 2004, so it was way before the cryptocurrency craze. So yes, his name is Crypto. and he is hilarious. If you are looking for a hilarious double A, it's not triple A, third-person shooter that resembles Invader Sim in every way and shape, uh, look no further than Destroy All Humans. For a lot of time, this series was exclusive to the sixth generation. See why I've been mentioning that the sixth generation was so important, and that THQ was so important, this studio, because they revived their legendary franchise Destroy All Humans 1, recently released Destroy All Humans 2. This one is much more important because this one was only released on the Xbox 360, not even the PS2. It was exclusive to the Xbox 360, the original Xbox. Sorry, the original Xbox. This one was exclusively released for the original Xbox. This one, I think it was original Xbox plus PS2. And then on the Xbox 360, or for the Xbox 360, they realized they released a third game. Sorry, uh, Destroy All Humans: Path of the Furon. Destroy All Humans: Path of the Furon, which is the third game. I wonder if they are going to remaster it, but if they don't remaster it, you have the Xbox 360 version and the PS3 version available to play. Fortunately, they were released during the 7th generation, so it wasn't as bad as these two. The fact that THQ was able to save these two games, it's an absolute miracle, and it's incredible. These games, though I mentioned that they are AA, they look amazing, and as I've said, they have hilarious dialogue lines. Um, uh, they are as crazy as Invader Sim in a way, because of the guns, because of the weapons that Crypto uses. For example, there's one weapon that is like, I remember it has weapons like well, I just hope that YouTube doesn't find about this section. I don't know. There are weapons that you all know that they're like injecting things in the butts of the people, in their anuses, like pretty crazy weapons. So yeah, they are absolutely crazy. If you're looking for something like that, pretty American, these two games, with all of the incredible humor that you can find there, they were made for you. And if you like the Invader Sim with its quirky dialogue lines, they are also made for you. Yeah, the anal gun, the anal gun, the anal gun. Yeah, pretty crazy things happen in those games. But as for the rest, they have a pretty interesting story. Just don't take it seriously. The Saboteur, the legendary swan song that we commented last time, the legendary final swan song of Pandemic Studios, the developers, or those of you who haven't watched the previous section that we covered, the developers of Battlefront 1, 2, The Lord of the Rings, The Conquest, pretty legendary games that we've all heard about. And also the Mercenaries series, Mercenaries 1 and Mercenaries 2. Mercenaries 1 is exclusive to the Xbox, to the original classic Xbox. Mercenaries 2, it's on the Xbox 360 as well as on PC, but they don't work extremely good because they don't work well because the crosshair, they didn't go for the offset, the classic offset, the modern offset that we see nowadays, that the crosshair is in the middle of the screen and your character is in the top right or left corner, kind of like in those games. It's like in Star Wars Battlefront, it's kind of like the crosshair, it's kind of like behind your character's head, and it's extremely clumsy. So the Mercenary series, I don't have them here. I tried fixing them, especially Mercenaries 2, but I couldn't. Simply that crosshair in the middle of the screen, it's a disaster. It completely ruined the gameplay mechanics. But well, after the three initial legendary arena shooters that I showcased, the Battlefront and the Lord of the Rings Conquest series, and the Mercenaries series, they developed one last game. Pandemic Studios, an extremely talented studio that I'm always painful to I it has always been painful to say goodbye to that studio when they went bankrupt, because they made, as I've said, some of the best arena shooters ever created, with pretty good bots, and the conquest mode, the legendary conquest mode. It was painful to say goodbye to them, but well, before leaving, they left us with this legendary and forgotten game, also from the seventh generation. Here you can see a pattern by now that the third-person shooter genre, uh, actually, it wasn't created, but its huge expansion was during the sixth and the seventh generations. It's an extremely particular case, the third-person shooter genre. You have to look at the original Xbox, especially, and the rest of the seventh generation. The Saboteur, as I've said, this game, the setting of this game is in World War II, Paris, more specifically, in France, and it's an open world game, the best game developed by Pandemic Studios, the most modern game developed by Pandemic Studios. I think this one is from 2009, something like that. And the engine is much more modern than Battlefront and the Lord of the Rings: The Conquest. Uh, and it's their only open world game. It's a third person shooter. They fixed the issue of the crosshair that I've said, that kind of like they applied the modern offset of having your crosshair in the middle of the screen while you have your character in one side of it. It has a lot of missions. It's open world. You get to explore Paris while you sabotage uh, Germany in this case. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. It's like you're a partisan. At least in Italy, they were called partisans. While you sabotage everything, and it's open world. You get to explore France. It has different side quests. It's completely different when compared to all of the previous works of Pandemic Studios. It's their swan song. It's the last game they developed. It's the last game they developed after going bankrupt, and I would highly recommend it. Just like I highlighted Advent Rising, that you need to play Advent Rising 100%. You need to play the Saboteur, because it's pretty much the perfection of Pandemic Studios. It's their last game. It's much better than their previous games, because they had the money, the budget provided by Electronic Arts, but it was a time in which Electronic Arts didn't influence their studios, so they tried to save them. They couldn't. A pretty sad story, but at least they left us with this final masterpiece that we should all explore. Playable on PC without modding at modern resolutions and frame rates, so it's up for grabs for in case anyone is looking for an open world third person shooter. The swan song of Pandemic Studios. Highly recommended. Spec Ops The Line. The studio behind this game, Jaeger, a German studio, if I'm not mistaken, after this game, which is pretty much the only game they developed, it's a AA studio. They went on to develop a pretty forgotten and obscure arena-based space shooter genre, which is online only, in which you don't control a human, you control spaceships, called Dreadnought. As you can imagine, the ultimate fate of Dreadnought, this arena-based shooter that used ships, is completely dead. They used the Cry engine, I believe, so they spent a lot of money thinking that graphics and multiplayer would save them, and it wasn't the case, and now I don't think they have developed any other games. So pretty much the studio was born and died in a pretty short period of time, as you can imagine. But well, before dying, I think they haven't closed, but they don't have the budget to develop any more games. They released Spec Ops: The Line, their first and only playable game up until now, which is a pretty good game. The game is amazing. If you like Gears of War combined with... This was released back in 2011, 2010, when the campaigns of the US in the Middle East were kind of like at their height, and this one pretty much simulates that. Remember when I think it was Obama, the second presidency of Obama, that all of the Middle East campaigns were in all of the news outlets and those things. Well, they used the fame of that political situation to release this game. The game is amazing. It has its own story. It has its own everything. It's not that it's a stupid copy paste of what happened in Afghanistan or anything like that. No, not at all. It just uses it as inspiration. The game is its own thing. There's a story. There's a squadron. Pretty interesting. If you like Call of Duty, you'll probably love this game. I do love this game. Sadly, the studio then went from doing what they knew that they did best to develop something completely different and irrelevant, which is an arena shooter with spaceships. I think it's the only one in the history of games. A pretty weird case. It's called Dreadnought, as I've said, and well, a disaster. So yep, it was like a supernova. This studio, Jaeger, it was born and it died. This game is amazing. A third-person shooter. It's like Gears of War. If you like Call of Duty and Gears of War, and if you're looking for some kind of Middle East version of Gears of War, this one was made for you. Smooth gameplay mechanics as well, and also the sandstorms in this game affect your aim and the gameplay mechanics, so that's why I tell you that it had a lot of innovation. Kind of like the sandstorm would move your accuracy, I remember, and affect the layout of the battlefield. Those things, amazing, pretty amazing. It also affected visibility, as you can imagine. So the sandstorms were the protagonists here. A pretty unique system. An absolute pity that then the studio immediately disappeared. Inversion. This is a a forgotten classic third-person shooter which tried to simulate Gears of War with inverted gravity mechanics. I know it sounds pretty weird, but yes, it does work. It's interesting. It has arena mode, I believe. You can play the campaign. Pretty good. But it's extremely forgotten. Highly recommended though. Inversion. If you like crazy zero gravity stuff, well, in this case it's inverse gravity because I think you are pulled to the floor, to the roof or something like that. Pretty crazy, but it's enjoyable. It's pretty well made, I can assure you. Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Future Soldier. I completed this game. Contrary to popular belief, this is an extremely forgotten game of the 7th generation as well, developed by Ubisoft. It's the forgotten predecessor of Ghost Recon Wildlands, which fortunately was much more popular. I completed this game. I still have to complete the standalone expansion campaigns. I liked it. You can approach the situations in stealth mode or like Gears of War, meeting the enemy head on without stealth. You are part of a squadron, so it also has squad mechanics. If you like Gears of War, as I've said, this one is pretty much the Ubisoft version of Gears of War. Before the Division 2, there was Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Future Soldier, an amazing game. It also has a pretty similar humor when compared like Battlefield Bad Company 2. In that sense, it reminded me of Battlefield Bad Company 2, which I mentioned that it has amazing dialogue lines. So this one is pretty much a pretty similar situation. If you like the Division 1 and 2, if you like that Ubisoft signature uh, when developing third-person shooters, Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Future Soldier was made for you. Its sequel, developed one generation later, Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Wildlands, it's also good, but I would still recommend playing Future Soldier first. I designed this custom cover that it looks amazing here because this game has pretty good graphics as well. It has some expansion campaigns, and I think you can enjoy it a lot. Pretty great examples of third-person shooters developed by Ubisoft. They are playable completely offline, as I've said, contrary to the Division 1 and 2. So yeah, pretty much. If you like Ghost Recon Wildlands, a lot of people who played Ghost Recon Wildlands don't even know about the existence of Future Soldier, and Future Soldier was the original formula. Saints Row. God damn it, how they have prostituted the recent remaster of this game. How they have prostituted the recent remaster of this game. Please don't play the recent remaster of this game unless you're a masochist. If you're a masochist, play the modern remake of Saints Row. It's a reboot actually. But if you're actually looking for quality, Saints Row 3, pretty much the original experience. In case you are wondering what happened to Saints Row 1 and 2, they are broken on PC, never fixed. They were released, never fixed. So I highly suggest you play the Xbox 360 versions of Saints Row 1 and 2. Saints Row 1 and 2 anyways have nothing to do with Saints Row 3. Saints Row 1 and 2 are Grand Theft Auto clones. They are like GTA. The first and the second one, there's no science fiction involved, nothing at all, they were clones. But when Saints Row 3 released, pretty much the best entry in the series, it completely changed the formula. It added science fiction, alien invasions, it's its own thing. Completely different when compared to the first and the second entries of the franchise. It also has pretty strong language, and those things pretty similar to Destroy All Humans. Pretty similar in a pretty similar way. The humor is pretty similar. The dialogue lines are pretty similar, pretty crazy and incorrect as well. Let's say. So yeah, if you're looking for a crazy alien version of Grand Theft Auto, besides having Destroy All Humans, you also have the Saints Row franchise. This one is much more similar to Grand Theft Auto in the sense that you control a human, and it's also similar to Sunset Overdrive. In fact, Sunset Overdrive was based around, it revolves around the formula of Saints Row. I would say Saints Row 3 is an extremely important game for the history of video games because it created its own variation of the third-person shooter genre. Open world. This game is open world. You have a city. You have to fight the aliens. Blah blah blah. Pretty crazy. Same with Saints Row 4. It follows the same formula. An extremely conservative game when compared to Saints Row 3. Pretty much the same formula. So we can split the franchise into two different eras. The Saints Row 1 and 2 era, which is a clone of Grand Theft Auto, and Saints Row 3, 4, and the expansion of 4, which is Get Out of Hell instead of Get Out of Hell, which is pretty crazy. It's a standalone. So yes, this was the peak, the pinnacle of the Saints Row franchise. The third entry, the fourth entry, and its expansion. What happened afterwards? We have this weird forgotten game from 2015, developed several years later. We're talking about the 8th generation, and Saints Row 4 was during the 7th generation. Agents of Mayhem, developed by the same studio, if I'm not mistaken, by Volition, and it's its own thing. I have to say this, just like I mentioned that this game here, Arcade Geddon, which is third person as well, but it's an arena roguelike, it's what Fortnite should have been. The same could be said about Agents of Mayhem. The graphics are extremely cartoony, pretty similar to Fortnite, but with the gameplay mechanics of Saints Row, which makes it superior. A lot of people hate this game because it's not as good as Saints Row 3 and 4. It's not as good, granted. But the game is a 7 out of 10. It's enjoyable. If you liked Saints Row, if you liked Sunset Overdrive, if you liked... There's another franchise that I should comment, that I'm going to comment it right now. If you liked Infamous, such a forgotten franchise, exclusive to the PS3, I completed both games. If you liked Infamous, it's a pretty specific style. Infamous, Saints Row, Agents of Mayhem, Sunset Overdrive, but it's the same. It's a huge city in which you have superpowers. Prototype, also the Prototype franchise, Prototype 1 and 2. The thing is that the PC versions of those games are completely broken. Just like Saints Row 1 and 2. Agents of Mayhem, I would suggest it as a humble expansion of Saints Row 4, though it's its own standalone game. I would suggest it as the quality is much lower, but at least it's an expansion. It's a modern expansion of Saints Row. Besides, if you played Fortnite for a lot of hours, like most of the human population has done, it's not my case, you'll probably feel right at home with Agents of Mayhem. So in that specific case, if you like cartoony graphics for whatever reason, you will like Agents of Mayhem, believe it or not, because it will be like playing Fortnite in an open world city with better dialogues. There's no dialogue in that pile of crap in that multiplayer. Crap, which is basically kill each other without any kind of purpose. This one at least will have a purpose, will have a story, will have its own unique weapon system, it will have its own buildings, its own level design, so yeah. Highly recommend Agents of Mayhem and Arcade Geddon if you liked the pile of crap that Fortnite is. Those two are much better versions of it. And you'll feel right at home because the aesthetics are the same. Rogue Trooper Redux. We begin with the incredible legacy of Rebellion Studios, a pretty legendary and classic AA developer of this genre. We are getting to the end of the third-person shooter genre. Rogue Trooper Redux. Always remember to get the Redux versions of all of the Rebellion games. A classic. This game is a classic in which you are an alien soldier that basically your consciousness is transferred when you are killed in a pretty original way, and you can keep fighting, and it's pretty well done. I think I don't remember if Rebellion was American or German right now, but yeah, pretty much this studio is legendary. Anything developed by Rebellion, which belongs to the third-person shooter genre, will be of excellent quality. And out of all of their games, Rogue Trooper was the original experience, in the sense that it had its own story, its own charisma, its own characters, its own everything. So pretty much is the birth of this great studio, which I highly recommend you explore the story of this studio. After that, they developed Sniper Elite, version 2 remastered. This is a remastered version. A classic. This was their most famous game. This is third person, but it's a sniping game in which, just like with Sniper Ghost Warrior that we covered on Sunday, this one is a first person shooter all the time. In the Sniper Elite series, it's a third person shooter that at the end of the day it's also a sniping game, kind of like the bullets are affected by physics, by the wind, by everything when you shoot the enemies. World War II is the setting, and it's a classic game. There's not much I could say about it. It's an amazing game that everyone should play because it's a classic of the third-person shooter genre. Pretty hard because your bullets, as I've said, will be affected by physics such as wind and those things, and it has kill cams pretty similar to Mortal Kombat, so it's amazing. It's an amazing franchise that I would highly recommend. A much more recent release, Sniper Elite 3 and Sniper Elite 4, but please play Sniper Elite V2, which is Sniper Elite 2, which is the classic and legendary and the best version of it, right? But then you have the other sequels up until Sniper Elite 4. Zombie Army 1, Zombie Army 2, Zombie Army 3. After releasing those 3 games, Zombie Army Trilogy was born. Be careful with these games because they have amazing graphics. Do not underestimate Rebellion, because even though they are a AA studio, they managed to create an engine with amazing graphics that certainly stood the test of time. Their games look amazing, much better than any other AA game, coming to think of it. And especially Zombie Army Trilogy it looks gorgeous. The zombies look gorgeous, the Nazi zombies look gorgeous. Just like with Sniper Elite, which is World War II, you fight against the Nazis in those games. This one is the same, but with zombies. Pretty similar, following this trend that Call of Duty Black Ops created of the zombies of World War II. Zombie Army Trilogy is amazing because it's 3 games in one, as you can imagine. And yes, pretty much you get to fight just like with Sniper Elite 2, 3, and 4. With Zombie Army 1, 2, and 3, you get to fight hordes and hordes and hordes of endless zombies that will fight, that you have to fight endlessly until you can beat their leader 100%. And it's amazing. It has amazing horde modes, in the sense that that you survive for a lot of time until you get killed, which is something I appreciate a lot from this series, that they have the legendary horde mode that you are meant to simply survive endlessly. Pretty well done. If you like Sniper Elite, you'll love Zombie Army Trilogy. And Zombie Army 4, well, is the latest. Zombie Army 4 Dead War is pretty much the latest release of the series. As I've said, do not underestimate the series. They look gorgeous, they play incredibly well, and I highly recommend them. Highly recommend the Zombie Army and the Sniper Elite series made by Rebellion. Their last game, Strange Brigade, as if zombies weren't enough. Here we have the opportunity to explore Egyptian tombs and fighting Egyptian mythological creatures here. So yes, pretty much. Here you can fight mythological creatures that it pretty much uses the same engine. So if you liked Sniper Elite 1, Sniper Elite 2, 3, 4, and the Zombie Army series, you will love Strange Brigade. It's just a different setting. So yeah, I definitely believe you will love it. It's pretty much the whole legacy of Rebellion. Then we have Evil West. This is a recent release. Haven't been able to try it. Gangrave Gore from the classic Gangrave series. This is a remake of the classic Gangrave series from the PS2. You need to have these games because they are classic. They are just like God Hand on the PS2. They are classic games. And then we have Returnal, which is a recent release by Sony on PC. Pretty much it mixes roguelike elements. It's made by Housemarque. You'll see that once we get to the Twinstick Shooter section. Housemarque is a prominent developer. It was originally a second-party studio of Sony, just like Insomniac Games. When they developed Stardust, Super Stardust, Ultra, as well as the other one, Resogun, and many other twin-stick shooters. So yeah, pretty much those. They recently released Returnal. There's also another game that we need to showcase that is Nex Machina. That is also a twin-stick shooter. All great examples. All great examples. Freelancer. Alright, we get to the space simulation genre, ladies and gentlemen. The space simulation genre. Why do I have it here? Well, because it's not these games don't belong to the FPS genre, but they also don't belong to the third-person shooter genre. Generally, in these games, you have two views, kind of like inside of your ship and outside, kind of like first person and third person. You usually have two different views that you can choose from. Generally, most of the time. In some exceptions, you cannot choose, but well, you get the idea. It's a totally different genre. And also in this genre, there's also economic elements added to it. There's also that special there are a lot of economic elements added to this genre. So with all of that combined, this is the space simulation genre, a pretty obscure genre that is exclusive to PC, pretty much just like MOBAs and MMORPGs, right? So it's an exclusive it's a genre that is exclusive to PC. Freelancer. We begin with this one. This is a modded version of it, so it can run at modern resolutions and frame rates. I still need to try this from 2004, developed by Microsoft. Pretty much the one of the first 3D space simulation games ever released on PC. I say 3D because most of this genre's games were 2D for a lot of years. It's a pretty particular genre, pretty niche genre. Nowadays there's a monopoly of this genre by Elite Dangerous and the other one, and Space Citizen, Star Citizen, sorry, that is still being developed after a lot of years. And then we'll have Starfield and those. But yeah, that one will be much more like the Elder Scrolls, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, a pretty unique genre. Freelancer, you can trade, you can be a space pirate, you have missions. These games have the highest learning curves out of all of the game genres generally. So yeah, we have Freelancer, then the other game developed by Microsoft, Darkstar 1. This one was also on the Xbox 360. You still have the Xbox 360 version, but this is the PC version. These are kind of like light space simulation games. They don't feature fully economic intergalactic systems, so they're more like shooters. This genre is polarized by two variants. Either it's a true intergalactic simulation in terms of economic empires and your role, and they go as deep as being close to an RPG, or they are light shooters like something like Starlink, Battle for Atlas, like Star Fox, like Dark Star 1. Freelancer is a bit more complex, but it still doesn't get to the point of the legendary X series developed by German developer Egosoft. Um, the X series is pretty much the king of this genre, pretty much the king of this genre. Uh, it has been for a lot of time, for a lot of years. X2, they went for from being extremely complex to simplifying some of the mechanics in recent entries. So X2 and especially X3 Reunion, they are extremely complex. The learning curve of these games it's is a steep. Besides, we no longer have those crazy um, and thick physical guides with us that used to come with physical games like these. And the learning curve of these games is humongous. That's why I still haven't been able to explore them. But I can say that this version of X2 fixes. I fixed the most prominent issue of these games. Um, the problem with X2 and X3 is that they didn't allow you to see the interface of your ship. By that I mean the control panel and everything as if you were piloting it. No, they were first person, a pretty huge mistake. But thanks to modders, these versions of X2 and X3, I remember that I modded them, you can play from inside of the cockpit. Right, so they are pretty special versions. I highly suggest you apply those mods because these games are meant to be played in first person, from the cockpit, from inside the cockpit, and without that they look like empty space. These games are huge. Huge. Consider that they simulate galaxies. So yes, the I highly suggest you apply the cockpit view mods to all of these games, to X2 and X3 Reunion. And I think when you apply to this, it also applies to its expansions, X3 Terrain Conflict and Albion Prelude. And they recently released this one, X3 Farnham's Legacy. This one is much more modern. These were classic games from 2007, something like that. Consider that these are economic simulators as well. There are empires that you trade with, everything. You can be a space pirate, but you can also be kind of like a wealthy merchant, for example, something like that. And yes, definitely the X3 series, it's legendary at this point and should never be taken for granted because it was a huge achievement back in the day. Uh, and then you have the expansions: X3 Terran Conflict, Albion Prelude, and Farnham's Legacy. All of them with their own story. These games feature stories and everything. Don't think that they are just economic simulators. A lot of years later, back in 2015, I believe they released this one, X Rebirth. This one you don't need to mod it to add the cockpit view. So great that they realized their mistake, that modding wasn't needed. This time, this game was hated for a lot of time because of how simplistic it was. So, in fact, I would highly recommend that if you are looking for a simplified version of the X series, this one was made for you, X Rebirth. Hated by the community, loved by those who wanted a more simplified version of the X series. Then, after some more years, the X series returned with X4 Foundations. This one returned to its roots. This one was extremely patched. In that sense, Egosoft has no equal. in the sense that they patch their games, their space simulation games, up until they are fixed, up until they are enjoyable by at least a portion of the player base. And in the case of X4, it returned to its original glory. It returned the series to its original glory, to all of its glory, with all of the economic system and everything. So this game is loved by the community. Amazing game. I need to try this franchise as soon as I can, because I've heard it's completely amazing. I've only dedicated myself to modding the first games to add the cockpit view, which is pretty much mandatory in my case. Starpoint Gemini 2. This is probably, alongside the X series, the best space simulation game ever released. It's an indie game, but it's actually AA. It's not fully indie. The first game was a prototype, so this is the first game actually in the franchise. Amazing game. This one is third person. You use lasers, you use everything. It looks gorgeous. These games are huge space simulations of galaxies, of planets, so highly recommended. This one is a bit more combat oriented according to what I've seen. Starpoint Gemini Warlords, the sequel that you have that I have to play, that we should all play, because these games are amazing space simulation games. Then we have Starpoint Gemini 3, recently released. As you can imagine, if I still have those two pending, I have to play this one. The Battle of Sol, a pretty obscure indie game, which is pretty similar to Starpoint Gemini, released shortly after it. It has nothing to do, but if you're looking for something like Starpoint Gemini, you play the Battle of Sol. These are kind of like third person, like the camera is behind your ship rather than being inside of the cockpit. Though in these ones you can play with the camera outside of your ship, but it's not as good as the cockpit once you mod them. Rebel Galaxy, this one is a much more modern example. Be careful with this one is much more modern. Pretty amazing graphics, 2015, amazing game. Simplified, but if you're looking, as I've said, these are all different variations of Starpoint Gemini 2. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, this one is extremely forgotten. House of the Dying Sun, it's another indie. These games are pretty much exclusive indie Steam games, because this genre is exclusive to PC at this point. These are all AA or indie games. Generally, this genre, it's a genre in which the AA budget for games is much more common than in other genres. It cannot be indie. It cannot be indie because of the 3D graphics and the galaxies and the scope and the general scope of these games. But they also cannot be AAA, because then we would be getting to something like Star Citizen. That's pretty much the idea. That's pretty much the idea that these games are. They are, most of them are AA. They are not indie and they are not AAA games at all. Everspace, the sequel of this game, was recently released. I have to get it. It's been recently released. I don't have it here now, but this game is amazing. I think it uses the CryEngine. It's one of the few games that use the CryEngine. That's why it looks gorgeous. And yeah, pretty much if you're looking for something like Freelance or like the Everspace 1 and 2, they are amazing games. I actually played them a bit. The first one, this one. The second one, I need to try it. And they look extremely amazing. If you are looking for a modern experience of this genre, look no further than Everspace 1 and 2. Everspace 2 has been recently released, so you have that. Strike Vector X. Haven't tried it, but it's also a double A space simulation game. If I remember correctly, it was pretty good. It was much more shooter oriented. These are indie and double A games, as I've said at this point. Starway Fleet, same. Nexus the Jupiter Incident, be careful with this one. This one could be considered a real-time strategy game. It's from 2004. It's playable at modern resolutions, but it's an extremely old game. No, if you're looking for a shooter, no, this could be considered an RTS. But if you like things like Battlefleet, Gothic Armada, or more RTS-oriented space games, but you don't like the RTS aspect of them and you'd rather have an RPG aspect, this one was made for you. This is a remastered version. It's a pretty famous game, it's a classic, but just know that it's not an FPS. It's a strategy game, an RPG strategy game. Galaxy on Fire 2, this is an Android game, believe it or not, it's an Android game that was released on PC because it was pretty good. Galaxy on Fire 3 Manticore was released for the Switch, online only, an absolute disaster. So the best of the franchise is Galaxy on Fire 2. You can also play these on Android, Galaxy on Fire 2 and 1. Strike Suit Zero, pretty amazing. I highly encourage you to play it. And now we get to what we usually call on-rails shooters. These are on-rails shooters rather than space simulation games. As you can see here, is Panzer Dragoon, the remake. You also have Panzer Dragoon Ortha on the Xbox Classic, on the original Xbox. And yeah, pretty much developed by Sega. The Panzer Dragoon series, it's a legendary on-rails shooter. You also have Star Fox 64, the 3DS version, which is the remastered version, and pretty much all of the Star Fox franchise except for Adventures and some other games that opted to choose different genres. Similar to Panzer Dragoon, you have the Falconeer, a pretty similar modern release. It's an indie game, extremely advertised by Microsoft as well. So pretty good. You have pretty good options. Redout Space Assault. In case you don't know, the Redout franchise is famous for its anti-gravity, racing games, Redout 1 and 2. But not only that, they also developed this forgotten game in between the other two, in between Redout 1 and 2, which is Redout Space Assault, on-rails shooter. Highly recommended. You'll feel right at home if you liked the original Redouts or Redout 2 in terms of graphics and aesthetics. Subdivision Infinity DX, another great example of an on-rails shooter. Warhammer 40k Daka Squadron, you get to play as the orcs, yes, and this one is not in space. You don't play in space, you play with an airplane, and it's pretty much an on-rails shooter like Star Fox. Pretty well done, polished. I like the execution of this game. And Chorus, this game was extremely forgotten. If you like Everspace, you'll probably love Chorus. And yes, well, as you can see, the protagonist and everything, it's a little bit modern, let's say it. The game is a classic space shooting on-rails game. It's not a space simulation, kind of like with its own economic system and everything. It's much more simplified. You can see that a lot of the games from this genre, from the space simulation genre, aren't actually simulators. They are heavily simplified. Those on-rail shooters and even those space simulators, which are more based around combat and dodge fighting instead of economic systems and intergalactic empires. Other examples: Star Wars Squadrons, but that one is arena based and online only, so not an option for me. So you have Star Wars Squadrons, you have No Man's Sky, which is based around pure exploration. There isn't a lot of combat, and it feels like Minecraft in the sense that you get materials to improve things, and it's simply not made for me. It's simply not made for me. If they were to release a pure dodge fighting version of No Man's Sky, I would definitely play it. And the other one is Star Wars Squadrons, and I don't know, Star Citizen, Star Fox. I also have a lot of Star Fox games, and Everspace 2. So more or less, you have the whole idea, the whole picture of the space simulation genre. If you're looking for the most exhaustive and complex simulation, look no further than X2, X3. You are literally in the middle of intergalactic economies looking to conquer each other. So yeah, and you can be pretty much anything. They have that RPG component to them. So it's a pretty unique genre, the space simulation genre, because it can go from something extremely as simple as a dogfight, as an on-rails shooter, as a series of on-rails shooters, to something as complex as being part of a huge intergalactic empire. There's also a famous MMORPG that I sadly don't remember the name, that I couldn't get to play, that also had a brutal difficulty curve that I don't remember. So Eve Online. Eve Online. Eve Online is one of the most prominent examples of the space simulation genre, but it's a massive multiplayer online game. It's playable only online only, so I'm waiting for a reverse engineer version of it. So Eve Online, another great option, a classic option. Elite Dangerous, online only as well, another great option. Those are pretty much the ones that have the monopoly. They have completely dominated the genre. And now Star Citizen, but yeah, mostly Eve Online and Elite Dangerous. If you're looking for something more modern, Elite Dangerous. If you're looking for something more classic, Eve Online. Eve Online, I think, uses isometric views, and the other one is just like modern space simulators, like you're in the cockpit and those. Okay, but as far as offline space simulators go, the best is the X franchise developed by Eaglesoft. Then we have EVE Online, that I hope they eventually develop a reverse engineer server, because it's an important part of gaming history, of PC gaming history. But well, EVE Online needs to be reversed engineered. It has one of the most brutal difficulty curves ever created in any games. These games generally have brutal difficulty curves, especially the X franchise and the most complex versions of these space simulators. So yeah, pretty much. Also, there's another franchise, the one that started it all, the legendary Wing Commander franchise. I know that I covered this. The last Wing Commander game, which is Wing Commander Prophecy, was developed for the Game Boy Advance. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's a huge universe packed inside of a Game Boy Advance cartridge. The game is extremely unknown. I covered it in the Ultimate Nintendo 3DS showcase. But then you have the rest of the Wing Commander series, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the PlayStation and the Super Nintendo. So yeah, you also have the Wing Commander series. Oof. Alright, that was a lot. But we begin with a beloved genre that I need to eventually showcase. The Twinstick Shooter genre, ladies and gentlemen. The Twinstick Shooter genre, the last genre that we're gonna cover today. So we covered third-person shooters, space simulators, and now the Twinstick Shooter genre. And we begin with none other than Alien Swarm. a game developed by Bulb using also the Source engine. Probably the most forgotten game developed with the Source engine by Bulb. Just remember that I mentioned Payday 2, Natural Selection 2, Left 4 Dead 2, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Team Fortress 2. All of these were part of a legacy of games developed by Bulb or other independent studios, but those also used the Source engine of Bulb, so they are basically all the same story. This one was developed by Bulb. They were all part of the same family of games, of the same legacy. Alien Swarm. Why do I have this here? Well, because it was developed by the legendary Source engine by Bulb. This one was developed by Bulb. But this game was incomplete for a lot of time. This game is the Mario Maker of Twinstick Shooters. It's the Left 4 Dead of Twinstick Shooters as well. But why do I say it's the Mario Maker? Because the philosophy of this game is pretty similar to Mario Maker, in the sense that the users create their own maps, they upload them to the community, and the community gets to play them in squads of 4. It's a co-op game. However, this is a unique reversed engineered version of it that I'm able to play offline with AI controlled bots as allies. Pretty similar to the case that we commented yesterday of Aliens Fireteam Elite and some other arena shooter games. Basically, you fight against aliens, and the idea is to get from point A to point B and exit the level. Right, pretty similar to Mario Maker, the concept, or Left 4 Dead. It's isometric, it's a twin-stick shooter, it's only on PC, and it's the Alien Drop Edition or something like that, but it's also reverse engineered. This one is portable because of that. This version is unique, just like I mentioned the previous reverse engineered MOBAs and MMORPGs. This one is completely offline. I can take the files with me and play this version portably, believe it or not, and without internet connection or anything like that. So I have a complete Mario Maker at my disposal. The game is, as I've said, amazing. It has a pretty smooth engine, the Source engine, and I packed this version with a lot of community developed maps. Right, so just like Little Big Planet, that I reversed engineered Little Big Planet, and Mario Maker 1 and 2. This one, well, Mario Maker 2 still cannot be reversed engineered, but Mario Maker 1 and Little Big Planet, kind of like the do-it-yourself platforming genre, created by Little Big Planet, and then amplified by Mario Maker. And in this case here we have the Steam version of Mario Maker, which is Alien Swarm. Highly recommended, mandatory to have this game and play it. If you like Left 4 Dead, you will pretty much love this game. Change the zombies for the aliens, change the first-person shooter view for an isometric view, and pretty much you have Alien Swarm, just as if you were playing Left 4 Dead. There are also roles. You have to be you can be the medic, the demolitions, part of the demolitions team, or the assault class, whatever. It has everything. Highly recommended. I created this custom cover that you won't see anywhere else. I think it's amazing. Because it truly reflects the nature of the game. It's meant to be an A, but with an alien thingy. Second game, which is mandatory to play, of the twin-stick shooter genre. I love this genre. This is Shadowgrounds Survivor, a forgotten game from 2007, if I remember correctly, that is still a PC exclusive game. See, when people say that PC doesn't have exclusive games, I laugh because it's the one platform that has the most exclusive games. Alongside Alien Swarm, Shadowgrounds Survivor is also an exclusive game. Probably one of the best isometric action RPG, isometric twin-stick shooters ever created. It's a classic. It's the birth of the genre. This game is, you have to play this game before you play any other twin-stick shooter. This one and the one that I'm going to comment soon enough, that we're gonna cover soon enough. But yes, Alien Swarm is the Mario Maker. This one is the classic. If this one is the Mario Maker of the twin-stick shooter genre, this is Super Mario 3, or the original Super Mario for that matter, of the NES. This is a classic. You have to play it. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. PC exclusive, gorgeous graphics for the time it was developed in, smooth gameplay mechanics. Highly recommended if you like the twin stick shooter genre. Only on PC. Alien Breed 1 Impact, Alien Breed 2 Assault, and Alien Breed 3 Descent. This is an important trilogy for the twin stick shooter genre. Highly recommend them. They are classics as well. Shadowgrounds, Survivor, and Alien Breed, they are mandatory. These were developed during the 7th generation. They are also on the Xbox 360 as part of the Xbox Live Arcade program, but their PC versions are also amazing, and I highly recommend you try this full trilogy. Going up against the aliens and everything, it's absolutely amazing. You can see that this genre has just like the FPS genre is always about World War II and zombies, this one is almost always against aliens most of the time. Warhammer 40k Kill Team, a pretty forgotten game from the 7th generation as well. Highly recommended as well. Amazing. I love this genre. I played a lot of these games. In this one as well, you can choose. They also have classes, different weapons, everything. This game is amazing. You explore kind of like Uncharted spaceships of the Imperium, in a pretty similar fashion when compared to Deathwing, to Space Hulk Deathwing. So yep, yeah. And they all look amazing. Twin stick shooter games, for some reason, always look amazing. Just bear in mind that they can be short for today's standards. That's why I have so many of them. Renegade Ops, this one is probably the best looking. This is the exception. No, they all look pretty good, but they are short. I should highlight this. Twin stick shooters they are predominantly an arcade genre. That's why they are so short. They are meant to be played in stages that you complete rather fast and you finish the game. Their replayability is the horde mode or things that they include nowadays. Their replayability is what is important because they are generally short. But they all look amazing, huh? Don't be fooled. They all look amazing. All of these games. Out of all of them, probably Renegade Ops, the one that you see right now on screen, is the one that looks the best. Believe it or not, this game uses Unreal Engine 4. Yes, developed during the 7th generation, this game uses Unreal Engine 4, and it looks gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. The grass and the bloom effect and everything. This game is gorgeous. If you're looking for a modern experience of a twin stick shooter genre, this one was made for you. Gatling Gears, the first game developed by Vanguard Games. A pretty interesting experiment because Microsoft told this studio to develop a game so they could prove their worth before they could develop Halo Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike. I played these. Did you know that back in the day you originally needed to have Windows 8 to play Halo Spartan Assault and Strike? Well, then they were fully released. But well, Up until that point, you need to have Windows 8. If you had Windows 7, you couldn't play them. Then they released the Windows 10 version, and that's the version that you see here. Vanguard Games. Before developing Halo, Spartan, Assault, and Strike, they developed Gatling Gears. If you like these two, you'll probably love this one. I'm amazed at how that few people know about these two games. They are fully fledged twin-stick shooters based on the Halo franchise. Why is it that people don't talk about these games? They are amazing, both Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike. They are a bit longer than most twin-stick shooters. I think they have 5 different acts, and the levels are fairly long. On hard difficulty, it won't be a challenge, but it will be enjoyable. And they look gorgeous. They look gorgeous. Highly recommended. The best looking one is Renegade Ops, but Gatling Gears, Halo Spartan Assault and Strike, they use the same engine, developed by Vanguard Games. First, Microsoft tested the studio, just like Wizards of the Coast tested Larian with Divinity Original Sin 2. Microsoft tested Vanguard Games with Gatling Gears, and afterwards they allowed them to develop Spartan Assault, and in fact they developed a sequel, Spartan Strike, that few people remember. These were developed in a pretty dark age, the release of the Xbox One, 2014, 2013, something like that, 2013, 2014. No, I think 2014, both of them. And they were sadly ignored. But yes, you have 2 Halo spin-offs besides the legendary Halo Wars franchise that you see here. We also have a twin-stick spin-off of Halo, twin-stick shooter spin-off of Halo. Gauntlet. The developer behind this, I think, used the same engine as Force or Force Showdown. I think it was the same developer. I'm not sure, but they look pretty similar. There's a relationship between those games, but though they belong to different genres. When we talk about Gauntlet, we're talking about a fully fledged twin-stick shooter when compared to the others that involve some RPG mechanics. This is also RPG, but the controls are pure twin-stick shooter mechanics. There's this subtle difference. That allows you, because a lot of people confuse the twin-stick shooter genre with the isometric action RPG genre, and this is precisely the kind of game responsible for it. Because this one is a melee game rather than a shooter, though I think there's a class that's the archer, but the rest of the classes are melee, something like that. And you also have the wizard, but well, it's also melee. What's the thing? When you can turn your character through moving your mouse, when you can turn your character from the isometric perspective, it's a twin-stick shooter. You'll be able to recognize the games immediately after you hear this explanation. While the isometric action RPG genre, like Diablo and the ones we covered some weeks ago, they're point and click. You cannot turn your character in 360 degrees with your mouse or with the right stick of your joystick. No. That's the key difference between the isometric action RPG genre and the twin-stick shooter genre. That's why for a lot of time I had these Force Showdown and Forced games here alongside Gauntlet, and I would in fact should place them here. The thing is that first of all I am running out of space, of room. But yes, pretty much. Another thing that I've corrected is that Mythos is now here. I've separated it from Hellgate London because while it was developed by the same studio, one belongs to the MMORPG genre and the other one it's the FPS RPG genre. They are different genres. So yeah. Basically, if you like Forced and Forced Showdown, Gauntlet was made for you. This is the 2016 modern version of the classic game. There was a pretty old school isometric 2D game. with the same name. This is a modern remake that I would highly suggest you try. It's amazing with all of the updates and everything. Helldivers. This one has a lot of expansions. This one is probably a top 3 twin stick shooters of all time. This one is mandatory to play it. If you like Destiny, you'll probably like this game, because I would even say that Destiny took a lot of inspiration from this game. Destiny took a lot of inspiration from this game. This is Helldivers, people. It's basically Destiny with an isometric perspective and everything. It's a squad based. You can play all of these games on offline and solo. You can solo the levels, and it's amazing, just like with Borderlands. When you do so, this one has an RPG system to it. It's amazing. This one was originally exclusively released for the PS3 and the PS Vita. Definitely one of the best twin stick shooters to ever grace us. I think it's developed by a Finnish studio, Arrowhead. I don't know if they are Finnish, but I think it's the case. Arrowhead Studios, as part of a university program, something like that. I remember reading. And yes, any twin stick shooter developed by Arrowhead, they are the best of the best. So yes, out of all of them, Helldivers is amazing. It's probably one of the best twin stick shooters ever created. The Red Solstice, this one is extremely obscure, just like with Shadowgrounds Survivor. This one is exclusive to PC. The developer then became a bit more famous with this one, with Solstice Chronicles MIA, and especially the Red Solstice 2 Survivors, recently released on PC. I think these are all exclusive to PC. It's an indie studio that I sadly can't remember the name. Really sorry. But the Solstice trilogy is amazing. You are fighting in Mars, I believe. Whatever. It also uses tactical. It also has tactical elements. It has point and click mechanics. It's not that you turn your character, but it's still a twin stick shooter game. It blurs the line between isometric action RPG and twin stick shooter, but it's still a twin stick shooter. Amazing. I think this one has Horde mode, if I remember correctly. Solstice Chronicles MIA. These are all PC exclusive games. I don't know why the twin stick shooter genre is only appreciated and famous on PC or the PlayStation 4 and the PS Vita, things like that, and PlayStation. I don't know why. It should be much more popular. But yeah, these 3 are PC exclusives, if I'm not mistaken. The Solstice trilogy, highly recommended. Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions Evolved. This one is from Activision, I believe. And yeah, this game is amazing. It's a pretty famous game with amazing graphics. It's a pretty much modern incarnation of Geometry Wars that was born on the Xbox 360 with this one, Geometry Wars Retro Evolved. Something that few people know is that the first game was released on PC. The one that wasn't released was Geometry Wars 2. That is exclusive to the Xbox 360. This one I have it duplicated. I have it on the Xbox 360 and I have it here. It looks gorgeous. But this one is certainly amazing. This one I also have it on the PS Vita. This one I have it on PC and PS Vita, and this one I have it on PC and Xbox 360. They are arcade games, high score games, legendary. You need to play them because they are classics of the franchise. Here you can see a difference, that here I have grouped all of the ones that you use a spaceship. The Xbox 360 was also a prominent system, and the 7th generation as a whole was a prolific generation in terms of twin stick shooters. Both the PS3 and the Xbox 360 are the 2 systems with the most exclusive twin stick shooters ever. I could spend the whole night telling you a lot of exclusive twin stick shooters that I have both on my PS3 and my Xbox 360. But if you like this genre, then you have to explore the Xbox 360 and the PS3, because the Xbox, and they are all exclusive. That's the problem. The Xbox 360 has a lot of exclusive twin-stick shooters, and the PS3 has a lot of exclusive twin-stick shooters. Then the PS4 has some of them, but the two huge systems which certainly were prolific at this genre were the Xbox 360 and the PS3. Both of them. Because of different exclusive games that, if I ever have a capture card, I will showcase. I will eventually showcase. But well, until the channel doesn't grow a bit more, I won't do it, sadly. Oh well, if the channel ever becomes just a bit more popular, I will buy a capture card. I don't know where to get it here where I live, but I'll get a capture card and I'll showcase the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Sadly, the Ultimate Nintendo 3DS showcase still isn't as famous as I wish, but in case you are interested, if the Ultimate Nintendo 3DS showcase that I did gets popular enough, if it gets enough love, then we'll continue with the PS Vita. And if both of them are popular, then I will get to the Ultimate PS3 and Xbox 360 showcases. Transcripted. This is one of the most difficult games to find ever on Steam. It's a pretty obscure studio that I don't remember the name. It's an indie studio that created this masterpiece that I'm going to showcase on stream. Extremely forgotten. You are basically a hacker controlling a nanobot, trying to you are basically trying to stop a virus, a microscopic virus that is infecting humanity. This game is extremely difficult because it combines twin-stick shooter mechanics, bullet hell mechanics, with puzzle mechanics. Yes, the idea here is to go from point A to point B to escape the virus while reconstructing genetic codes. Is pretty crazy. The developers even use their own faces to play as the hacker and those things, and it's pretty well done. The graphics of this game are similar to those of Spore, kind of like with microscopic organisms. And there you can see, I don't know if you can see it, there's the drone, that small round thing in my custom cover. That's the drone that you control, and I will showcase this game because it's extremely unique. The same studio developed this Drifting Lands, and the studio is still around. This one was a much better game. This one is close to AA quality. It's a side scroller. So yeah, these are both 2D and highly recommended, both of them. Get them on Steam. The studio, I think it's a French studio that has a lot of talent. Extremely small. I think they're only 5 people or something like that, and they certainly deserve your attention. And these games especially deserve much more praise. Drifting Lands and Transcripted. That's why I'm going to showcase them. Tachyon Project. If you liked Geometry Wars, you'll probably like this. You'll probably love this one. I think this one is melee instead of, it's the opposite. It's melee in the sense that you... Was it this one or was it exclusive game from the Nintendo 3DS? Well, I don't remember. It's similar to Geometry Wars, pretty much. Magica, also developed by Arrowhead Studios, so a lot of quality, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty similar to Gauntlet and Helldivers. As you can see, they are masters of this genre alongside Housemarque. I would say Arrowhead Studio and Housemarque, they are both the current masters of this genre, alongside the developer, I think it's Daedalus or something like that, of the Red Solstice. I don't remember, honestly. I have a mix with the developers. This genre has a lot of indie developers and I can't remember them all, sorry. Magica 2, amazing. You have to play these two, the ones developed by Arrowhead. Wanted Corp, I should get an HD icon for this one, though it's pixelated. It's a pretty modern game. Don't be fooled just because it has an ugly icon. You work as mercenaries. You work as the mercenaries. This one is extremely unique. The Magica and Magica 2. You have to play them, but be careful because they have a complex spell combination system that is unique to these two games. It's not present in any other twin-stick shooter ever created. So these are the two original games developed by Arrowhead Studios. So pretty unique. I would suggest you play them first, so you see what they are capable of, and then you can get to Gauntlet, to Force Showdown, and also Helldivers. Helldivers is mandatory above all. Crimson Land, this is Tenton, I believe this developer. Tenton Entertainment, could it be? No, just Tenton. Crimson Land, Neon Chrome, and Tesla vs. Lovecraft. Out of these three, I love Tesla vs. Lovecraft. Believe it or not, science fiction against horror against science fiction against technology. You can choose. A pretty difficult choice for us science fiction lovers who also love technology. I would highlight this game, Tesla vs. Lovecraft. Believe it or not, it works, and it's the most refined version of Tenton's formula of Neon Chrome and Crimson Land. I love it. Assault Under Cactus, pretty obscure game. 9 Parchments, this is a much more modern release. If you like Magica, you'll probably love 9 Parchments. And yeah, this one, I don't know if it's also from Arrowhead or what, but I remember this one had a lot of quality with pretty good graphics. It's a much more modern version of Magica and those. Genetic Disaster, few people know about this game, but it's an extremely obscure indie game that is also isometric. It's also a twin-stick shooter that I highly recommend because I played this one. Pretty good. This one is one of the most obscure ever created. Mages of Mistralia, haven't played this one. Or haven't played this one. Wisgr, or something like that. Haven't played this one. Trident's Wake, haven't played this one. This one is much more modern, be careful. This one has pretty good graphics, if I remember correctly. Dangerous Scavenger, pretty good. Haven't tried it, but I've seen it and it plays pretty well. Bostock Inc., be careful with this one. This one is 2D. It's pretty obscure, and I think it has a 60 FPS cap, so be careful with this one. Demon Strikes Back. Here you can see that the ones that I'm showcasing perhaps don't have as much quality as the other ones. They are much more modern. They are much more indie. The budget, at least, it's much lower. But they are all valiant efforts, trust me. Demon Strikes Back. Well, Contra Rogue Corps. Yes, believe it or not, they released something like this. Don't expect a classic Contra experience here. Live Lock. This one is amazing. I have played it. This one is amazing. The same for this one, Hybrid Wars. These ones are amazing. These ones all have amazing graphics. These ones have 2D and lower, and then the graphics are much more humble, just to say. But except for this one, for Trident's Wake. And then this Live Lock and Hybrid Wars, be careful, these two look gorgeous. Those two look gorgeous. They are much more modern. Next Machina, Housemarque. How could we forget about Housemarque, the masters of the twin-stick shooter genre? We're talking about Dead Nation. We're talking about the PS3 and the PS Vita. We are talking about, as I've said, the Super Stardust series. The what was the other one? The one only released for the PS4, Alienation. That I could never play. That one I have it right here. Like I am so sad that I could never play Alienation. Please, Sony, we need a PC port of Alienation, because it's pretty much the predecessor of Next Machina, and it's similar to Helldivers. Next Machina is pretty much the formula of Housemarque perfected. They also developed a pretty weird game called Fermi's Housemarque, besides Returnal that we covered, exclusively for the PS Vita. Fermi's, which is like the Mario vs. Donkey Kong version of the PS Vita. Next Machina, pretty much arguably the best twin stick shooter released by Housemarque. Amazing game from 2017, I believe. The graphical effects of this game are on par with AAA games. I love this genre, the twin stick shooter genre. If you're looking for something like a AAA twin stick shooter, this one was made for you. The same for Darksiders Genesis. Looks amazing. Uses the legendary Darksiders franchise from Gunfire Games and THQ. I love the Darksiders franchise. I've played 1, 2, and I need to play the third one. And when this was announced, I was extremely hyped for it because it combined a legendary franchise that I loved with the classic twin stick shooter genre that I also loved. So it's a match made in heaven. Amazing. Highly recommend. Just like I told you, you have to play Helldivers. You have to play Helldivers. You have to play Shadowground Survivor and Alien Swarm and Alien Breed. And you also need to play Live Log, Hybrid Wars, Next Machina, especially Next Machina, Darksiders Genesis, and The Ascent, which is a modern release by Microsoft. This is the game that I complained about when I was creating my character in Hellgate London. In this game, there are only if it has one flaw, is the fact that you can only have wannabe gangster haircuts for your character. But if you can get past that, I ended up making my character bald. So yeah, make your character bald in this game, no hair at all. Make him bald, and you won't have to deal with disgusting wannabe gangster haircuts because the game doesn't offer a single normal haircut. That's a problem that games have had in the past 5 years or so, that they only allow you to have wannabe gangster haircuts. Kill Squad. This is the successor of Helldivers, so you must play it. It's the spiritual successor of Helldivers, released by a different studio several years later. If you liked Destiny, this one was made for you, just like Helldivers. This is the most modern incarnation of Helldivers, recently out of early access. It was in early access for a lot of time. This game got heavily patched throughout the years. This is a must play. This one, The Ascent, even if it has wannabe gangster haircuts, Darksiders Genesis, Next Machina, Hybrid Wars, and Live Lock, all must play, modern must play games. I'm so happy that the twin stick shooter genre has revived in such an incredible and perfect way. Amazing. The state of this genre is what all genres should be. The twin stick shooter genre focus on its niche market, the players like me who love it, and together they defended the legacy, the sacred legacy of the twin stick shooter gameplay mechanics. And they've created amazing AA games. I love how this genre and the space simulation genre found balance by creating AA games instead of rather than either AAA or indie. They have found balance. That's the important thing. I'm very happy for this genre because it was dead for a lot of years up until the 7th generation. It was dead for a lot of years. Just look for it in the 5th generation or the 6th generation. Yes, we have some prominent examples, some great examples in the Sega Dreamcast, the PlayStation, and the PlayStation 2, but nothing like the ones that I'm showcasing right now. Nothing like the ones that I'm showcasing right now, and nothing like the exclusives on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. The budget for this genre has definitely increased, and I can feel it. This genre is in a perfect state right now. Weird West, amazing, incredible, another must play. Curse of the Deadwood, another must play. Here you can see that I have played the most modern incarnations and the more classic incarnations. I'm missing the ones in the middle here. Weird West, amazing. This one is a triple A. This one is a triple A twin-stick shooter. It has gorgeous graphics and it's amazing. If you're looking for a modern twin-stick shooter, look no further than Weird West as well. Curse of the Deadwood is also amazing. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Highly, highly recommended. The Night Witch, no, this one it's 2D, it's different. I would first watch gameplays of this one before you get it. Though it has a pretty high reviews on Steam and everything, and it's a great game. But because of the aesthetic and the 2D decision of the graphics and the fact that it's a pretty weird twin stick shooter because it's also a side scroller, but you can move in 4 directions. So it's technically a twin stick shooter, but it's a weird horizontal twin stick shooter, pretty weird. This one I highly suggest you examine it before getting it. And Dust and Neon, this one is way too modern, haven't tried it, but I would highly suggest. But it looks amazing. If you like Weird West, you'll probably love this one. I got this one because it was similar to Weird West. Because besides all of the games in this genre, they are usually pretty cheap to get most of the time, under $30 or so. So yeah, pretty amazing. Curse of the Deadwood, Weird West, Kill Squad, The Ascent, Darksiders Genesis, Nex Machina, Hybrid Wars, and Live Lock. Pretty much anything developed after 2017 is of extremely high quality in this genre. Don't ask me why, but after that year, the genre became it's amazing. And you also have Helldivers. These are the classics that you cannot miss, definitely. Pretty much. So you pretty much have an idea of what you can play in this genre. Alright, here I have some more. These are not twin stick shooter games. These are isometric action RPG games that blur the line between twin stick shooter and isometric action RPG. The two genres are closely intertwined. And in this case, these are generally pixel art games or isometric games that simply cannot be either a twin stick shooter but also cannot be an isometric action RPG. They're kind of like in a limbo because they don't have heavy RPG elements, but they don't have heavy twin stick shooter elements. So here there's a bit of RPG involved. Just bear that in mind. Children of Morta, amazing, pretty famous indie. Skeletal Avenger, this one is a bit more obscure, but it's amazing. It doesn't use pixelated graphics, pixel art graphics. A lot of people ignore this game, sadly, and it's amazing. Don't know why. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. If you like things like Diablo, you'll probably love it, even though the RPG elements of Diablo aren't present here with much detail. But if you like Diablo, you'll probably love Skeletal Avenger. Darksburg, amazing as well. Curse of the Dead Gods. These are all famous indies, more or less. Children of Morta is the most famous, but this one is also amazing. Skeletal Avenger. Darksburg is also amazing. Curse of the Dead Gods is also amazing. And here I have something unique. These ones aren't like these ones. These ones are isometric Zelda clones. Yes, believe it or not, that is a thing. These are pixel art, isometric, The Legend of Zelda clones. I love The Legend of Zelda. I've played every game except Breath of the Wild that I need to play. Crosscode, Moonlighter. The next game is pretty amazing. It's pretty weird what I'm going to comment. But yes, if you like The Legend of Zelda, play the ones that I'm going to comment right now. Crosscode and Moonlighter. And there's also a recent release that it was released precisely yesterday by the same developer who created Moonlighter, which is a League of Legends story. Remember that Riot is releasing kind of like League of Legends stories of their characters, but the games belong to totally different genres. Well, yesterday, precisely 2023, there you can see the date in my desktop. Yesterday or some days ago, sorry if I'm not in touch with that, but I think it was yesterday, some hours ago. The developer of Moonlighter released a League of Legends story, Mage Breaker or something like that. It has to do with the mage character of League of Legends. I haven't played League of Legends a lot. I showcased how many MOBAs that I've played, but not League of Legends. So, if you liked Moonlighter yesterday, there was the official sequel, which is a League of Legends story game, which is the Mage story, something along those lines. These are isometric pixel art Zelda clones. These two, Crosscode and Moonlighter. Also, I would also recommend precisely these games. Not both of those, only Crosscode. Only Crosscode rather than Moonlighter. I would recommend Crosscode to those of you who liked isometric MMORPGs from the 90s or the early 2000s. Why? Because it's extremely similar to Ragnarok Online. Don't know if that one, if you know that one. I haven't played it. I played the DS version, which was pretty similar to the MMORPG. And since I like the DS version of Ragnarok Online, I got this one, Crosscode, which is pretty similar. So if you like Ragnarok Online, you will like this one. You will most probably love Crosscode. It'll probably be your favorite game ever because it's the only game that was ever released that is similar to Ragnarok Online without being Ragnarok Online. It also has shooting mechanics, so that's a plus. I know that the other one is an MMORPG, but in terms of aesthetics and everything, it's pretty similar. Runic Games strikes back. Runic Games strikes back. Just like I told you the story of Torchlight and Torchlight 2 and Torchlight 3 here, that they formed Runic Games after creating the legendary Fate 1 and Fate 2 games, and how they also worked on Hellgate London, and how they worked on Mythos here, and then they founded Runic Games and they developed the Torchlight games. After all of that, they developed Hub. I think this one is between Torchlight 2 and Torchlight 3. Hub. Isometric The Legend of Zelda. People, if you're looking for that, look no further. Action adventure. It's like playing The Legend of Zelda, but with an isometric camera. This one isn't a pixel art game. This one looks amazing, plays amazing. If you like The Legend of Zelda, this one was made for you. Made in Runic Games. So, yes, another incredible game that Runic Games released. It's amazing. It's pretty much amazing. If you love The Legend of Zelda as much as I do, this one was made for you. In a pretty similar fashion, and much more recently, we have Death's Door. Another The Legend of Zelda clone in 3D. These ones are in 3D. This one is 3D, this one is 3D, these ones, Moonlighter and Crosscode, are isometric pixel art 2D graphics. These ones are in 3D. Death's Door, this one was financed by Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken. It was a second party, something like that, or they paid for the advertisement. It's an indie studio that released this incredible Zelda clone. There you can see the custom cover that I made. Pretty much amazing. Amazing as well. And the most modern incarnation of a Zelda clone is definitely Tunic, released some months ago. You can see that little fox there is also isometric. This one I would highly suggest it if you like the remake over the remake of the Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening on the Nintendo Switch. I'm just using my memory, as you can see. Please don't think I'm crazy, but I always use my memory for these showcases. Tunic, here we have Tunic, highly recommended. It's like playing The Legend of Zelda, pretty much. Amazing game, probably the best alongside Hub of all of these three. And then we have a pretty weird and forgotten game that this game is like playing The Legend of Zelda, but rather than isometric like those, these three try to resemble A Link to the Past. This last forgotten Zelda clone, which is pretty good in my eyes, it's pretty good, it's pretty decent. This one tries to resemble The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This one is in 3D. The combat animations are a bit clunky in that sense. They should have polished them much more, but yeah, pretty much. A Knight's Quest. It's an enjoyable game. If you completely love The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you will probably look past all the flaws of this game and you'll like it. You won't love it, you won't think it's a great alternative to the Legend of Zelda, but it's the closest PC alternative to The Legend of Zelda, to classic The Legend of Zelda, A Knight's Quest. A pretty forgotten, pretty unknown. It tried to mimic the formula of The Legend of Zelda way before all of these classic incarnations of A Link to the Past. And of course, I have to end up suggesting that you play all Legend of Zelda games, just like I did some years ago. I didn't play them when they were released, no, but I played them kind of like in order, one by one. All of the main entries. Out of all of them, I would say Ocarina of Time on the 3DS it's the best, alongside of course Majora's Mask. But I would argue that A Link to the Past is better than Majora's Mask. Please try not to kill me. I would say Ocarina, A Link to the Past, and in third place I would place Twilight Princess instead of Majora's Mask. I didn't like Majora's Mask. Way too short. It feels like an expansion of Ocarina of Time. I like long games. I don't like that. So yes, if you could endure this last unpopular opinion without punching your screen or your keyboard, please please look forward to my next showcase if you endured that last opinion. But yes, I think Ocarina is the best, then A Link to the Past, closely followed by A Link to the Past, then one step below Twilight Princess, and finally Majora's Mask would be fourth place. Not a bad game, I completed all of these games, but A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time feel like complete stories. Majora's Mask feels like an expansion. Sorry, someone had to say it. But well, I also love Majora's Mask on the 3DS, but it's not as good as Ocarina and A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past and Ocarina, I played them on the 3DS, and in the case of A Link to the Past, I've also played it both on the 3DS and on PC through emulation. With a Super Nintendo controller, I have a Super Nintendo controller for PC, and it's a perfect combination. So, if you're looking for something like A Link to the Past on PC, because I've had this question myself, I have wondered this question myself before. Tunic, Death's Door, both made by Microsoft. Ironically, not Microsoft. Microsoft pushed the advertisements of these two games, and Hob by runic games, all incredible examples. And then you have Moonlighter and the League of Legends story that I showcased. I need to. I think that by the time we reach the racing genre on Thursday, um, I will have that last game here because I think it was pretty cheap and you could get it. The League of Legends story of the mage. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. Thanks to Sergio Daniel Maigoni for following the channel. You have you and also Daniel Cornejo. You both have Spanish names, so welcome, brothers. I also my native tongue is Spanish, so yeah, welcome, brothers. Pretty much. This is a pretty international channel. We have from every corner. We have users from every corner of the world. The few niche users that enjoy my crazy analysis and crazy showcases, like this one, are from all over the world, from the U.S., from Europe, from South America, from everywhere, from everywhere. So thanks from the bottom of my heart, Sergio. So well, there you could hear my true Spanish accent for a second, my true voice, Sergio Daniel. There you could hear my original, my OG voice for a second. Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. pretty. It's pretty weird listening to that after listening my English for hours and hours, but well, just in case if you're from other nationality, also thanks from the bottom of my heart. I think both of your names are completely Spanish, kind of like the name and the surname. I thank you also in my native tongue for a second there. So thanks from the bottom of my heart. You have your subscriber thanks message at the beginning of the stream. Thanks to anyone who may have taken the time to watch my my crazy finale of London 2038, my crazy integral history of PC game genres, here either as a Twitch bot or as a YouTube bot. Thanks to the YouTube subscribers, and always thanks from the bottom of my heart, especially to all of the 19 Twitch followers. Truly from the bottom of my heart, you are also the ones that truly encourage me to continue making these live streams and then uploading them to YouTube, of course, because it's much harder to grow here than on YouTube. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. See you all next time, and we are going to begin with the racing genre, the arcade racing genre, and then we'll get to hack and slash and everything. A lot of games that we have left to explore. And I will have here the successor of Moonlighter that was released yesterday. So I'll have it here for next time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. See you all on Thursday. We'll still have to do the analysis. We need to finish the that crazy Dawn of the Dead that I've seen images of in London 2038, and the Australian maps and everything. So we still have that, and the next analysis. One day I need to do a Twinstick Shooter boss rush showcase in which I play a lot of Twinstick Shooters one after the other, showcase how good they are. The one I want to begin with is Nano Assault. That one that I haven't showcased here because it's exclusive of the Wii U and the PS4 and the 3DS and those. There I want to see if my CPU can showcase that and everything. But well. We also have to do the offline MOBA showcase here and the offline MMORPG showcase eventually. That one is much bigger, so we'll leave that one for later. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. See you all on Thursday.